Good afternoon, sports fans. Welcome to another episode of JMJE Sports TV. I'm your host, Jason Muller, and today we're going to be discussing the NCAA conference changes that could happen within the next couple weeks. Now, Texas and Oklahoma are the big stories here. They can move within the next 24 to 48 hours. Their move is to the SEC, but the question that's being put up with a lot of writers right now is, where do the remaining Big 12 teams go? Because the Big 12 at this point, without Texas, Oklahoma, they're left with how many teams? They're left with 8 teams, while the SEC will have 15, the Big 10 will have 13, the ACC will have 15. There's rumors, I read an article that said that the remaining teams of the Big 12 can go join the Pac-12. And to me, that makes sense for a couple of teams. Maybe Oklahoma State. You could throw some of those teams in there, maybe. But to put schools like West Virginia, in the Pac-12 it's not a good decision. You got a school that's in Appalachia. The school that's in Appalachia, you're going to put them in a school that also has. You're going to put them in a conference that has schools that are in the Rocky Mountains? I don't think so. I don't think that's a good idea. I think the best place for West Virginia to go is the ACC. Even though I think the idea of super conferences is not a good idea. The college sports should have just stayed how they were. But every team had to get a marketing deal with a big, cool conference, and then look where we are now. Schools want to move, schools want to get out. ESPN is going off on my computer right now. But what I'm saying here is that a move would benefit these teams for better marketing. And again, same thing with West Virginia moving. If West Virginia ever moves to the ACC, like a lot of people hope for, and a lot of people are thinking that they will do, if the Big 12 does disband, again, you have a conference that has 8 teams, and then 7 if West Virginia leaves, I think, because they only have 10 right now. Yeah, they have 10. So they'll be left with 7 teams. And then you have conferences that have 15 teams, 13 teams. It just wouldn't work out. They would have to go elsewhere. But where else would they go? I mean, some of them can merge with some of the lesser known conferences, like the American Conference, the Sun Belt Conference, things like that. But the main ones that I'm concerned about, why not pick and choose out of other conferences? So you got the Big 10 has schools like Iowa and Nebraska. Now, Iowa and Nebraska are geographically close to the schools that are in the Big 12. You have Kansas, Kansas State, Iowa State. Those are all in the same geographic area. And if you're looking at television demographics and what people are watching what, you could definitely have a Nebraska. You could definitely put Nebraska and Iowa in the Big 12, and it will work. Now, that gives them 9 teams. That still gives them a little bit of a. That still gives us a significantly less amount of teams than the SEC, Big 10, Pac-12, and the ACC. That still gives them a significantly lower number, but it will still add something to it. adding Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC would be beneficial because both of them are two powerhouse football teams. Joining another one with another bunch of powerhouse football teams. The NCAA conferences are changing as we know it, and pretty soon we're probably not even going to have the amount of conferences we have. Within the next couple of years, I guarantee you there's going to be like 3 conferences. Maybe 2. Maybe 2 conferences because of everything that's going on now with this whole deal. But again, going back to Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, Texas versus LSU, Texas versus Alabama, Texas versus Texas A&M. You know, you're going to have a lot of really good matchups if this goes into fruition. So, I do think that this would benefit Texas and Oklahoma. But now again, so now moving on to West Virginia, the other team that I said that should transfer. West Virginia going into the ACC would be quite beneficial for them because you bring back a lot of old rivalries like the one with Pitt, the one with Syracuse, the one with Virginia. That brings a whole new dynamic to West Virginia playing. And then you have other teams thrown in there like Florida State. You know, and they're playing up against North Carolina, Clemson. Like, you got all those schools in there. All those big powerhouse schools. It would be great to see West Virginia play them on a daily basis throughout the year. But moving to the Pac-12, that makes no sense. If you're going to merge with... If there are any school in the Big 12 that I think remotely belongs in the Big 12, maybe Oklahoma State. It's technically the closest one geographically to the Pacific, which is the area that it kind of caters to, the Pacific and the Rocky Mountain area of the United States. Because you have schools like Colorado and Utah and Arizona and stuff, even though Arizona's not really in the Rocky Mountains, but you have Colorado, Utah, both kind of part of the Rocky Mountains. Oh no, the Rocky Mountains do kind of go through Arizona, looking up at a map. But still, those are the only ones that might make sense is Oklahoma, just because the panhandle of Oklahoma goes out far enough to make it technically could be part of the Pac-12. But if this does happen and the conferences do switch like they say they are, and the Pac-12 absorbs the Big 12, that's just a marketing ploy. You're going to have schools within the Midwest such as Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas Christian, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Baylor. All those schools are now going to be part of that Pacific demographic. Why have the Midwest be part of the Pacific demographic? To me, having the idea of the super conference it's not really a good idea. Because what's coming in the next couple of years, we're gonna like I said, we're gonna have 2 conferences, only like 2 conferences. It's a dumb decision to start moving teams around. But again, it will be beneficial towards them if the teams that want to move do move. Now, like I said, for the future, that means that this could lead to super conferences. Because again, if Texas and Oklahoma leave the Big 12, they're going to be left with 8 teams. While the SEC has 15, the ACC has 15, and the Big Ten has, I think, 13 teams. So they do have an unfair advantage with those big conferences. Now, if the Big 12 does disband and they go to different things, that's fine. I just don't think putting them in the Pac-12 is the best idea. You can distribute them throughout the various different conferences. I'm just talking right now about the Power 5. So, you could distribute them to, the other conferences like the Sun Belt Conference, the American Conference, some of them could become independent. It doesn't matter. But if the Big 12 does disband because of this, this could be a new setting of college sports that we see. It could be something entirely new that we're seeing. We'll have more on this as the days go on. We hope to see you guys soon. And quick announcement, we have a podcast coming out soon, Sports Ball, the Idiot's Guide to Sports and Pop Culture. It is hosted by myself and our hockey writer, Dave Casa. So, we're looking forward to showing you guys that, and we will see you all in our next video. This has been Jason Muller from JMJE Sports, signing off.